Hello, everyone. Welcome to the weekly Human Mind podcast. And today we are going to talk about the eight cognitive geniuses, which is based on MBTI's eight cognitive functions. This is very interesting because each of us has at least one or a few dominant cognitive intelligence. And by being able to know what are your cognitive genius or your dominant cognitive functions, it will allow you to have a much more clearer and more scientific way to have for your self-awareness, to know what is your strengths and weaknesses. Because with any strength come a natural weakness. So will be very good for you to know about yourself, overcome your anxiety, and know about what are how other people are likely going to perceive you, given that you tend to be dominant in certain way and weak in other ways. So, but first, let me talk about the MBTI. So today's video is based on the idea of the eight cognitive functions from the MBTI system, which is derived from the work of Carl Jung. He is a Swiss psychiatrist who specialized in treating mental disorders in the 1930s. So he was one of the first to propose the idea of the collective unconscious, which are the inborn templates of the mind, which is a precursor to the personality type. He was also the first to propose about extroversion and introversion that you have heard so much about. And he proposed about the four cognitive processes: thinking, feeling, intuition, sensing. So it was the Catherine Brick and Isabel Myers, a mother-daughter duo, who actually take the work from Carl Jung, which is very abstract and very clinical, and they actually invent a system of 16 personality types with the four letters that you have seen before, you probably have seen before, and uh, a self-reported questionnaire. So they simplify the system and make it very accessible to everyone to take the test and see the results. So it become very popular, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator or MBTI. It is taken by millions of people every year. So as I have talked about, so Carl Jung was the first to propose about the idea of the cognitive functions and later popularized by the MBTI. So an overview, where does these eight functions come from? So the mind does two things: perceive and then judge information. That make logical sense, right? Um, you perceive, you take in the information, and then you judge information. So the mind either perceive it in an abstract, conceptual manner or intuitive and or in a concrete matter of fact manner or sensing or as. And once the minds have taken in the information, they start to judge, and on what based on what criteria. So if your mind judge in a more objective, impersonal way, then it's more of thinking or T. But but if you prefer to use more of a subjective, interpersonal angle to make your decision, then it's denoted as feeling or F. And with each of these four elements can be directed in oriented outwards or inwards, outwards or extroverted, or inwards introverted. You probably have heard that before. And as a result, 4 multiplied by 2 is 8. You have 8 cognitive functions. You have introverted feeling, FI, extroverted feeling, FE, introverted thinking, TI, extroverted thinking, TE, so on and so forth. So as we have covered the foundation, let's explore the first four cognitive intelligence, which are just the four perceiving functions. We'll cover the four judging function later. So let's try to see which one of these four cognitive geniuses you actually have. But before we dive in, let's talk about the idea of extroversion and introversion. You probably have heard of that many times before, but a lot of people have the not accurate understanding of the definition of extrovert and introvert. So according to Jungian um, psychology, each of us have two, each psychological being have two different worlds that we are aware of. There is an objective outer world of people, objects, and ideas, and there is a subjective inner world that is inherent to your identity, to your ego. So introverts, if you are an extrovert, you are naturally more attuned and naturally prefer to quickly adapt to the demands of the environment. You naturally very fast to seek out feedback. So whether it's about people, rules, sensation, or common belief, you are very quick to adjust to yourself. The external world of the data from the outside world is the deciding factors. Well, as an introvert, they naturally try to orientate away from the outside world and they listen more towards their own identity, to their own subjective demand. So they don't care so much about what is the reality, but more on what are the subjective interpretation, From one picture, one bridge, you have four subjective interpretation from four different artists. And to the introverts, the introvert are like artists. They care more about their interpretation of the pictures. So that is the idea of an introvert, which sound almost like self-centered or egocentric, but might not be the same, but that is the idea. So when you combine that with another concept, which is intuition and sensing. So more in depth about intuition and sensing is that this is a difference. Basically, this is a difference between the big picture versus the details, the forest versus the trees. You know, it's about how we perceive information. Intuition is abstract. It's about the big picture. It's about the meaning of things, about metaphor, possibility, potential, symbol, and concepts. Well, concrete or sensing is about the sensory impression. It's about the taste, the senses, the facts, the direct experiences. So the mind of an intuitive person, they see less detail and more of the connection, Still like the dog here. Well, a sensing dominant person, they notice more of the details. When they see something, they want to absorb in the details. The color of the eye, the color of the fur, breed of the dog, and everything. More of the specific, tangible factors. So as our mind use both in different weight and complexity, so it depend. So, but in is intuition, we use more of, we see the big picture first before we notice the details. And sensing people, they notice the detail first before they see the big picture. And intuitive or intuition dominant people are the minority, about 25% of the population. So what does that mean? We have we combine intuition and sensing with introversion and extroversion. We have two multi two multiplied two is four. We have four cognitive functions. The first cognitive genius or cognitive intelligence that we talk about here is extroverted sensing. This is the essence of people who are dominant in this function. If you have this function as one of the dominant functions, you are very good at actively adapting to the environment. You are very good with noticing what is going on, the sensory details in the outside world, in the environment, and are quick to to take immediate action, to take advantage, to get the quickest results from the environment. Think about playing sports, painting, singing, things that require interaction and improvisation. For example, if you experience some pain, you can feel on the immediate sensation of that pain, that injury, and then you can quickly improvise some way to cover the pain or to heal, to quickly fix the pain. That is actual sensing. They are very good with adapting to the sensory environment. But with any natural strength, intelligence comes with a natural weaknesses, and that is the beauty of this system. So if you have this as one of your dominant functions, you are naturally weak in the opposite function, introverted intuition, which is the ability to see long-term implication of patterns. So that means that you enjoy, so logically you enjoy the sensory pleasure of the moment so much, you enjoy the short-term gain so much, you forget to learn from the past, you forget to see the pattern, the big picture. So you keep lose, you might, you you keep winning in the short term but you lose in the long term, basically like gambling. So you can easily be addicted to gambling or sensory pleasure. I hope you follow this. Then a different version of sensing is introverted sensing. It's still about the details, but when it comes to introverted, mean it's connected to your identity, your ego, your past. So so this if if you have this as a dominant function, then this is your unique genius. You are very good with connecting and relating to the past experience to stabilize the moment. It's about ensuring that thing are stabilized. So, instead of reacting and being very spontaneous like introvert sensing, introvert sensing are very good with, every time you see something, you compare it to the past, you know. So they are very good with and naturally attuned with bodily comfort and routine. They take pleasure from routine and the familiar. Example. So if they experience a pain, they will start to notice the sensory details, but then they compare it. Is it something that I have experienced before? Is it something that I have learned before? Is it something similar? And what are the methods in the past that I have used? Maybe rubbing something that I have used in the past. You get what I mean? And again, the natural weaknesses of this function is that they're naturally weak with the opposite extroverted intuition, which is the ability to be excited and quick to brainstorm and embrace different possibilities. So they're weak with that. They don't like changes. They like things to be exact. They like step by step, the details to be exact, like it has always been. They're uncomfortable with changes, with new things. Yeah, they can be a bit slow to respond to opportunities, nitpicking, not open or adapt to changes. Does that make sense? So as we have two flavor of sensing or the concrete, now we have two different flavors of intuition, which is the ability to see big picture and patterns in the environment. So we have two different flavors. Each of the intuition is when you combine with extroversion and intuition is about ability to be excited about possibility, about brainstorming. Someone who is very good with seeing the connection between things and quickly see the opportunity. They can be quite entrepreneurial. They can be very resourceful. So they are going to be coming up with very hands-on, innovative solution for a problem. Different way to maybe they think of different way to address a pain or a wound. So it's the ability to use from one angle they can see multiple solutions. So if this is your unique cognitive genius, then you have a natural weakness, and that is introverted sensing. Introverted sensing, you should remember, is ability to learn from past experiences, be to seek routine and stability. So if you are good at this, you are naturally weak with sensory experiences. You are too excited by the future. You like to improvise too much. You don't learn enough from the past. You don't care enough about the details. You have your head in the cloud, always about possibility, new things. You can pursue a lot of time, spend a lot of time pursuing unconventional lifestyle and ideas without taking care of the logistic, taking care of the routine, taking care of your body. And you don't focus and follow through because you are always so distracted. And so the last for observing or cognitive function is that is introverted intuition. Again, it's still about abstract pattern and seeing big picture here, but with an introverted flavor. What does that mean? It means they still see the pattern, but it's a very much inside the mind. It's about seeing the connection between things and where everything is going unconsciously without really knowing why. This is one of the more difficult function or intelligence to explain because it's so hard to grasp, and it's a very minority of the population actually have this function. But the essence is that it's the opposite of extrovert intuition. It's about seeing the underlying patterns among the many different things and knowing the implication of different factor and the implication, long-term implication. So instead of an innovative, a certain thinking about the different possibilities, different solutions, they're much better at seeing one most likely outcome. Like something happened in the Middle East, maybe a bomb goes off in there's a war in the middle there's a war in the Middle East. Something they might have a feeling that something is going to happen to the stock price today in the market. It's about connecting things and seeing a likely outcome, a hunch of how things are going to turn out. That is intuitive intuition. It's very much about a hunch, a gut feeling. So I hope that makes sense. So if you have the gift of this cognitive intelligence, then you are naturally weak with extroverted sensing. As you remember just now, extrovert sensing is the ability to be spontaneous, to be very keen with the sensory input from the environment to adapt to it. So, an I user, if you have this, you tend to be, you tend to overthink. You spend too much time inside your head. You don't enjoy the moment enough. Overthinking, paralysis by analysis, overly cautious. You are not instead of adapting the environment. You like to plan. You like to think what is the most likely outcome, what is the best outcome, and you might have a distorted vision of reality because you don't take enough input. So we have covered the previous four cognitive functions. I hope you have identified with at least one cognitive functions in in that set of four perceiving functions. So now we move on to the final four judging functions. Let's see which of these cognitive genius or cognitive intelligence that you have. First, let's talk about feeling versus thinking. This is not to be confused with emotions or lack of emotions. This is not the case. Everyone have emotions. We are talking about cognition, cognitive here. So this is more about impersonal versus relational decision making. So thinking is impersonal, or feeling is more relational. Another way to look at it is thinking is more like logic versus ethics, or functional versus relational decision making. So feeling is in fact the ability to feel or to truly feel or put yourself into the shoe of another person and feel their subjective. The key word here is subjective needs and preferences. The subjective energy, emotional energy. Well, thinking is the opposite. Thinking means taking out only subjective factors, but use only objective equation and data to measure everyone based on that these factors on the scale and measure. You don't feel anything subjective, but you actually weight on the scale of data of formula and equations. Okay, this one is good at this. There's a matrix for it to measure everything and everybody. So the first function we talk about is introverted feeling. It This is one of your dominant functions, or your dominant intelligence. That means you are someone who like to stay true to your identity and your subjective needs and preferences. You feel deeply. You have the ability to feel deeply, and you want to fight for what you believe in, even doesn't matter how subjective or how unpopular it is. Or so the aim of intro the feeling is that you this is something important and personal to you. There's no formula that tells you, it just happened to you and you feel strongly toward that cause. Its aim is to refine, stay true to one's belief and preference. It is mainly driven by subjective factors. For example, some it might be an unpopular thing, but in the past, I was attacked by a chicken in my childhood, and because of that, I really hate chicken. I want to one day I go exterminate all the chicken. Even though statistically it is an unpopular thing to hate chicken or being attacked by chicken, but I don't care about logics. It is true to me and I care about it. And it's my cause and I want to fight for it. You get what I mean? It's something very subjective, very personal. It's not really driven by logic or data. And see, this is a very common intelligence among a lot of artists, a lot of musicians share this because it's allow someone to feel deeply the emotions and communicate it. But with this artist temperament, if this is your intelligence, then unfortunately, you are naturally weak with the opposite function, which is extroverted thinking, which is the ability to organize things and rely on objective data to get the best result. You don't need, you're not very good, you're not very good with listen to objective result, bottom line, profit, which is very business centric. You would rather listen to how you feel, whether something make you feel good or true to your identity. It's very difficult for you to accept cold fact or cold logic. And as a result, people who are undeveloped or immature in and with this function, if they over rely on this function, they can be very self-absorbed, judgmental if people don't agree with them. They don't like to listen to fact or data or popular opinions. They want to stick to their preference. It can be their strengths and weaknesses. They can be very black and white and very impractical because they don't want to listen to result or data, or you have to make profit, you have to earn revenue. They don't like to listen to that if they don't feel it's true to them. They can be overly concerned with emotions and ethics and not being very productive or practical. And another flavor of feeling is still about listening to the subjective factors, but this is an extroverted flavor of feeling, which even mean they are more naturally attuned with the natural, the outside world, the law, and the feeling of other people other than themselves. So They are naturally good with, so they are, the essence of it is that it is friendly hosting. That means is goes with, it's like it's very good with taking care of the need of everyone and make sure everyone have a good time. It's not about listening to your subjective needs, but other people's. And are they observing the laws of the group, of the society? It tend to have, unlike introverted feeling I mentioned earlier, which is a bit more artistic. This one is have a more positive and pleasant flavor, a bit like a host. For example, to have a good time, if you come to a house or a party, you should compliment the host. You should compliment the painting and the furniture. Even if you might not agree that is a nice painting, you still compliment it. That is the law. You see what I mean? So if you are someone who have this cognitive intelligence, you are a good host. You are good at taking care of the needs of the others. But that means you are weak with thinking, which is the ability to see the logical benefits, the logical result and data. So if you're not careful, you can be easily get emotionally entangled in other people's needs. You don't draw appropriate boundaries. You might and get too much into people pleasing, guilt, shame, drama. You don't want to be alone. You seek outside approval too much. Next, we have extroverted thinking. This is a very, if this is your intelligence, your cognitive intelligence, you are someone who is very industrious. Thinking is very logical, very systematic, and extroverted mean that you seek result, you seek externally validated result. You want the best outcome. You rely on data to get the best bottom line, the best productivity. Because the essence of this function is timely efficient building system that is efficient. So like each of the feeling, each of thinking is also based on observing the data, the laws, natural law. But its purpose is to create structure that are efficient. So instead of maximizing the harmony of the people, this one, each of thinking is actually to maximize the performance, the use of resources and of the system. It's very business centric. They make for very good business manager because they can see even people as resources, as a piece of the system that have to be maximized. They are very good leader and very good at managing tasks. But because that means they are naturally weak with introverted feeling, which is the ability, as I mentioned before, the ability to deeply empathize your own subjective needs and preferences, and similarly the subjective needs of other individuals. For example, uh, each of thinking is very good with setting up rule like, okay, everyone start at 8 a.m. in the morning because it's the best for productivity. It's the best practice. But some people have subjective needs, they have children, they have some health issue, they can't come exactly on time at X, some come later, some come earlier. But as an extrovert thinker, you want to force everyone into a system, a mode to or maximize efficiency. So you don't care about their subjective needs. And that is their weaknesses, especially for people who are close to them. They can appear very as a tyranny. They can be very formularistic. And as a result of that over reliance on formula data, their aesthetic sense, their friendship, their passion or experiences are very bland. They are very suppressed. They can even have the end justify the means kind of mindsets where they can engage in unethical behavior to get the result. To get what to get to achieve the result at whatever cost, even at the cost of ethics and the feeling of other. Then this is unfortunately this is one of the intelligence of the typical intelligence of those villains that you see in movies because they are so ruthless. And but similarly, we have the thinking, but in an introverted flavor. These people are still very systematic, very data oriented, but very in a subjective way. That the whatever they don't care about whatever best practice or whatever formula that everyone is saying. It has to make sense to them, to their data, the subjective data. So they can appear very stubborn in a way. They don't care so much about getting the result, but more on logical consistency. It had to make sense to whatever they system they already logic they already have. So their essence is they are make sure that whatever thing they do had to be careful to fit into whatever system they have already carefully produced. So it's more about refining logical principles and system. You think of introvert thinking is more like business and introvert thinking is more like science, Introvert thinking is more about science and whatever make logical sense. It's not about result. Introvert thinking is about business. So naturally, if this is your cognitive genius, you are naturally weak with the opposite, which is extrovert feeling, the ability to be in tune with the human law, the feeling of the others and the group. So you're quite good with your subject matter, with your logic, but you're clueless about how people feel, about the etiquette in a group. You don't know how to behave in a group. You go to a party, you don't know how to behave, how to make small talk. That is your weakness. You don't care enough about the presentation, how you appear. You only care about the data, the results, and what makes sense to you. So you can appear very set, very weird, very um weird. You appear very eccentric to people. So I hope you have enjoyed the presentation so far, and I hope you have been able to identify at least two cognitive geniuses for yourself. Comment below.